McDerment. Pulls up. Shot's good. Good job today. Great pass to McDerment, who lays it back in. McDerment. Steps back, fires, hits. 8 on the shot clock. Needs to get something up. Keltos into McDerment. McDerment fires at the buzzer and hits.
You can't meet expectations you don't have. Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Athlete Podcast sponsored by Sports for Champions. Today I'm delighted to be joined by professional basketballer and Manchester Giants star Leah McDerment. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're more than welcome. Thanks for joining us. So we start these podcasts every single time right at the beginning. How did you first get into basketball?
So I have an older brother and he used to play. Which meant a lot of me going along to his practices and his games and stuff. And then eventually I just picked up a ball and started trying to do what they were doing on the sideline, running up and down and trying to put the ball between my legs and stuff. And yeah, that's kind of all how it started, age 5.
Was it one of those where you're quite competitive with your brother?
Yeah, I'd say so. But luckily I was able to get put into a team early on, so it wasn't too much of me against him. I was able to get an all-girls team, so we used to play on a Saturday morning, so I got to play against other boys in that league because he's a little bit older than me. So
it was a mixed league?
Yeah.
That's cool.
It was
wow.
a mixed league, but we were an all-girls team, and obviously it was really tough, but I remember one year we lost to this one team. I think we'd lost to them twice or once, and then we played them in the final and absolutely smashed them.
Oh, right.
So yeah, it was really, really good. Yeah.
Did you have mixed teams as well as all girls teams and all boys teams?
I can't really remember. I'm pretty sure it was all boys teams we played against. Maybe they had like one girl, but we were the only all girls team at that point anyway, that early point.
How was the attitude towards the girls playing basketball? Presumably there wasn't as many as there was boys playing.
Yeah, I think at that age there wasn't like much of an attitude or much difference noted, but I think once you start reaching the teenage years, I think that's when it becomes a bit more the boys, like they're out to get you, they don't want to get beaten by a girl. It's more like a pride thing, which makes it super fun and competitive.
Definitely, all the more sort of will to win, really.
Yeah, 100%.
Definitely. And then how did you first sort of take it to the level of, I know you're kind of a fan of the Manchester Giants when you were younger, and then obviously you ended up there after quite a while. When you first sort of started going to watch basketball and things like that, how did you first sort of take it to that next level?
I think my brother just always loved it. Like he was like a big LA Lakers fan, and I actually found like a picture the other day of me, my brother and his 2 friends, and it was like a poster that we'd made saying like "Go Giants" or something. So that was a really full circle moment. We used to go and watch, I don't really remember it, I was really young, but them and like Manchester Magic and stuff. Harlem Globetrotters, been to see them a few times, but yeah, more so just like playing. I just loved to play more than anything.
So you were picked up at 12, I think, by the national team.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a bit about how that came about?
Yeah, so we used to have a tournament at Lillishall, and you used to play for your region. So I was playing for Northwest, and then you go to the tournament and you play competitive games against the other regions, so like South, London. So I got to do that quite a few times. I can't remember what age I initially was, but maybe 9, 10. And then the England scouts are there, so the coaches are there, they're watching the games and stuff. And so I was lucky enough to be invited to an England development camp. So it's sort of working your way up through your region. So then it goes to like North, and then the England development camp. And so I made my first England squad when I was 13 for the England under-16 European Championships.
Was that a big step up in level compared to sort of who you were playing with at club level or playing against?
Yeah, I'd say the main thing obviously was the age difference. I was quite a lot younger than the other girls, and at that age 13 to 16 is it's a huge disparity just in strength and height and stuff. So yeah, but it's super fun because you get to play with the best of the best in the country. So other girls that I'd played against maybe at the under 14 level when I was playing for Manchester Mystics, we all get to meet up and play as a national team. So you build relationships and bonds and friendships and get to go and represent your country. So it's just, yeah, it's amazing.
That's really cool. What kind of player were you back then?
I'd say just really tenacious, a great leader and point guard, always looking for my teammates, super confident. I think when you're young, you have no other thoughts of just like, I'm going to score the ball, I'm going to do what I can for the team to win. So yeah, just worked really, really hard. I'd say that's something that till this day I just always have, is just a really hard worker, and that's what sets you apart, especially at a young age.
I think when you're young playing sport, you kind of try a little bit of every position. You said point guard there. Can you tell us a bit about that position and perhaps what makes somebody good at that role?
Yeah, to be good as a point guard, you've just got to have great vision. You've got to always be one step ahead. You need to see what the defense is going to do, what you're expecting them to do. You orchestrate everything on the floor. I had one coach describe it as, you're the catalyst, you're the one that gets things going, and the energy sort of comes from you. If you're low, then it's difficult for the rest of the team to get going. So yeah, just being a leader, because everything starts with you. You're the one that's got the ball in your hands like 80% of the time. So yeah.
There you go. And then I think you were only 16 years old when you took a big step in moving down to London. Can you tell us about the sport side of that and perhaps a little bit about your own personal development through that?
Yeah. So yeah, when I was finishing my GCSEs, I was obviously applying for colleges and stuff. And I just really wanted to take it to the next level. And so at that time, the best academy was Barking Abbey down out of East London. And so I had friends that went there through the national team, so I knew some of them, and so I made the decision to do that, move down, do my A-levels, live with a host family. Basketball wise, obviously it was tough. It was a step up. I was playing with the other best girls in the country that had chosen that same path. I suffered an injury the first year, which was really difficult to deal with mentally, just at that young age. And then, yeah, obviously being really far away from home at such a young age is hard. It was a big sacrifice and a huge commitment. But I think you just kind of get on with it. And I knew that that's what I wanted to do, to take it to the next level, which was to ultimately go to America. And I knew that the coaches there had really good connections and had sent girls in the past. So I made that decision, and it was the best decision for me at the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a well-travelled path, isn't it? When sort of people are doing well in the UK, they go out there to America and kind of... we've spoke to a lot of athletes who their time in America has really shaped them as an athlete as much as in terms of their sport. When you first went out to America, spoiler alert, you ended up in Massachusetts, very cold up there. I think that's one of the sort of defining characteristics. Can you tell us a little bit about the sort of stages before that move? Was it a hard decision, or were you kind of tunnel vision, this is all I want?
I knew that was 100% what I wanted to do, was to go to the States. Then you just have the process of actually doing it. So it's, a lot of emailing with different coaches, different schools. So I went on a visit to 2 schools, one in New Jersey and then UMass, which is the school I went to. The one in New Jersey, he also came over to watch me play in London. And then, yeah, it's just trying to, it's hard because you never know until you're there. So it's just trying to put feelers out and see ultimately how you feel. And then when I was on my visit to UMass, I actually verbally committed there and then and said I was going to go to the school, and then left, ready to embark on the next 4 years.
What made you choose that school?
I just loved the campus. Like, I loved the vibe of the place. It's a really big school. I think there's about 25,000 students there. Wow. So it's a lot of people. I like the girls on the team. I just felt comfortable there. After my other visit, I just was like, yeah, I think this is the one for me.
Yeah, it just makes sense.
Yeah.
And then during that time, how did you develop your game? Is there stuff that you picked up there that you think probably you wouldn't have picked up if you not gone out to the US?
Yeah. It's just a different kettle of fish out in America. It really is. Everyone's so talented. There's amazing coaches. It's very, very serious. It's another level of commitment. It's, you know, you're arriving, you might have some treatment, and then you have an hour weight session, and then you're in practice for 3 hours, and then you eat together. So you might be at the gym for a total of 6-7 hours in one day.
Wow.
On top of studying, you're still trying to get a degree on top of that. So I think it really depends on where you go and how you develop and how much the coaches put into you and stuff. I had a lot of adversity in my time there. My coaching staff actually got fired. So I had a new coach for my last 2 years, which is a huge adjustment. Not necessarily the coach that recruited me or wanted me there.
Of course.
So there's a lot to deal with. So yeah, just building mental toughness, resilience, and just trying to enjoy every moment. You know, you're taking private flights across America to your games and stuff. It's just next level, and looking back on it now, it's insane, like what we went through and what we did and what we achieved, and just the experience I was so lucky to have, you know, going to all those different places.
That's amazing. So, but presumably by the end of that time, you are kind of fully settled into your role, your position, things like that. Had it changed any since you were in the UK?
I think I really carried on over everything that I'd built here in England. I've always been a very natural leader. I captained the England under-16s team. I was captain of my teams in Manchester and London. So I just went in with that same mentality, worked really hard, was fortunate enough to play from the jump. A lot of girls don't. They have to wait a couple of years before they break into the squad, but that was also a big factor of my decision. I wanted to play. I didn't want to sit on the bench. So I went and wanted to make an impact and try and elevate the programme. And yeah, I was able to be a 4-year starter, which is amazing.
What does that mean, sorry?
It means that the 5 players on the court is the starting 5. And usually that's like the older girls. But as a freshman, I was able to do that from my first year.
Wow.
So I got to play all 4 years and was captain for the last 2 as well. So yeah, it was just carrying on over, being who I am and just taking that to them.
What qualities do you have, do you think, that made you a good captain?
I think I'm a really empathetic person. I think I'm a good listener. I like to check in with people. You know, I think I can tell if someone's having a tough practice or a tough time, or if, you know, if something off the court is unfortunately come onto the court. So just having that awareness and being a good people person, and I just always try and have my teammates back regardless of what's happening, have their back and their best interests at heart, and know that ultimately it's bigger than basketball and it's bigger than sport, and it's about who they are as a person and enjoying everything about it, not just their performance.
On finishing university in America, I presume there's kind of a decision to make. I'd imagine the parents would be like, I fancy maybe coming back. We'd like you a little bit closer to home, but presumably that's completely up to you.
Yeah.
What was your thought process around that?
Yeah, it was tough, especially, you know, it was a really tough 4 years in America. A lot happened, and your relationship with the sport can change a little bit. And so I had to decide, am I stopping now? Like, is this it? Am I gonna call it a day kind of thing, or do I want to play pro? So I did actually do a job interview out there to help with a team, but then I decided I'm not quite done yet. So I spoke with some agents and stuff, signed with an agent, and they put me in contact with a team in Germany, and that's the path I went down. So came home for a few weeks in the summer, and then went back out to Germany.
How was the German at the time?
Yeah, I didn't really know what I expected from Germany.
Yeah.
I really had no idea what to expect, and I went out and absolutely loved it.
Right.
Loved it. at one point thought, this is it, I'm here, like I'm not leaving Germany, I'm staying forever. But yeah, I really, really loved it. Learned the language a little bit, had some really good teammates, had a really good first pro experience.
What was the pro scene like over in Germany?
It was the second division. I would say it's probably quite similar to the UK in terms of standard. It was great. It was just what I needed. I think I needed to break out of the shell and the box that college sport had put me in, and to try and find who I was again, and you know, make that transition from a college athlete to a professional.
What is the difference? What is that shell that they kind of put you in?
You know, the coaches, they have to win in America. That's how they put their food on the table. That's how they feed their families. And that it is very serious. It's very intense. They're relying on you as a team to perform so that they win, so that they can keep their job. And so it's very role specific. You have your role, you have your job, you do that job. If you don't perform that job well, you're on the bench and someone else will come in and do it for you. So sometimes it can be a little bit limiting in terms of that. So it was just breaking out of that one role that I had for that team for the last year or the last 2 years, and knowing all of the other stuff I can do and bring, and just a bit more enjoyment, a bit more flow into the game, and yeah, just being a bit more of myself on the court again.
I think it's often when people are at their best is when they're enjoying themselves, they're enjoying the sport, they're happy in the team. I think that's half the battle a lot of the time. So you didn't stay in Germany in the end. You did come back over to the UK. Can you tell us a bit about that decision?
Yeah, so COVID happened, which was obviously a crazy time. The season got suspended. I also actually had surgery during that time, so I took like a little bit of a hiatus from the sport. Had about a year or so off, and then in the process, like was reaching out to one of my old coaches from Barking Abbey, where I was when I was 16. And they said, like, how would you feel about coming back to London? You know, we're trying to really build a good team. We're trying to play in Europe. The opportunity to get paid. So I said, yep, sign me up. I'll be there. Came back to England, and yeah, that's how my journey started with London Lions.
And then with London Lions, how long were you there?
I was there for 1 season.
1 season.
Yeah.
How did that go?
It was a tough one. A lot of adversity for me personally. I had an injury. I tore my calf, which was really, really tough. It was a lot of back and forth. We'd built an incredible team. So mentally that was a lot to deal with, of being around such amazing players and knowing that I was supposed to be one of them and with them, and not being able to ever reach that point of full health and fitness. So it was probably my toughest season to date. Yeah, a lot of growth from that year, which led me to coming back home to Manchester and trying to get my feet back under me and get healthy.
You mentioned resilience a little bit earlier, and with injury, obviously, as somebody who's sort of poured the whole life into the sport, and then to not be able to do it, how difficult is it to sit on the sidelines and kind of watch your teammates do what you want to be doing?
Oh, it's incredibly difficult. It's so mentally challenging to not be able to be somewhere and not be able to do what it is that's why you're there. The reason I'm here is to play basketball, but I'm not able to do that. I can't contribute. I'm not able to. I'm exhausted, but not in the same way that you are. I'm exhausted mentally. I'm exhausted from doing rehab, but it's not from being able to just run around. And when you have played sport your whole life, and obviously we all know the amazing benefits that sport does have, and the endorphins and stuff, and not having that release is really difficult. And when you have dedicated your whole life to something, you feel a little bit lost. Okay, well, who am I outside of this now? And wondering, am I good enough to be here with these players? When it comes down to it, am I going to be able to be at their level and compete? And a little bit of imposter syndrome creeps in. Well, a lot of imposter syndrome creeps in. But yeah, it's really tough, and anyone that's gone through it will understand how that feels. But you just got to keep chipping away and doing what you need to do to try and come back and be ready when your time comes.
What do you think it is that gets you out the other side?
Just time and just working and, you know, doing what you need to do for yourself, whether it's speaking to a sports psychiatrist, whether it's going for walks in the day, whether it's reading books, something that like brings you joy outside of the sport, because it can be all consuming, and especially when you're not able to do those basic things because you are limited physically, so you're, you know, trapped inside to some extent depending on the injury. Just knowing that it's not going to be forever and that you will get there eventually, and doing everything you can with the physios and your trainers and stuff and strength coaches to get there.
There you go. And then in terms of your homecoming back to Manchester, can you tell us a bit about that, how that felt? It must have been great for the family to be able to come and watch your games and things like that.
Yeah. I did explore my options, and I just felt I need to go home and get my feet back under me, have that support of family and friends, be Leah outside of basketball. I've always been really lucky that I have an amazing set of friends, and I exist as someone else when I'm with them, and it's not, you know, my best friends aren't people from basketball, it's friends from school, so I have that whole other side of life, and I'm really lucky in that regard. So yeah, having them there and just the support is just, it's been really nice to have my mum and dad at games, because they've been through so much with me and they've supported me, and I'm where I am today because of them. So to be able to have them sidelined, they absolutely love it coming to games. So yeah, it's been nice.
I can imagine. So how important do you think it is to maintain that life away from sport?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think it's something that we can miss sometimes and kind of get lost in the sport and not have that other side. And you know, you ask someone what's your hobbies, like what do you like to do, and there's that pause of, okay, what actually do I like to do outside of this, because you pour so much into it. Life carries on when the sport finishes, so it's about planting the seeds for when that's done, but also just being able to step back and find other things that bring you joy, so that when it is all said and done, you're not completely lost. Yeah,
it's difficult. I know a lot of athletes kind of throw themselves in, and it seems when you're 20, the idea of being 30 seems an age away.
Yeah.
It comes around fast, I can tell.
Yeah.
So what does a typical day training look like at the moment?
So we have shoot times in the morning, so we can go up and just get some shots up, as a few of the other pros like to do, just like an hour or so, maybe a little bit of recovery. We practice in the evenings, so 6 till 8 is our typical practice time, so filling your day with whatever you need to do, whether it's recovery, whether it's getting a lift in, obviously eating right, preparing,
as in weightlifting?
Yeah.
So there's quite a lot of gym work that goes with it?
Yeah, 100%. That's like crucial for injury prevention,
of course.
Being able to, you know, be strong and compete with other girls on the court. So yeah, it's being pro, you have a lot of free time, so it's how you decide to fill your free time, which can be a challenge. I know that a lot of people, when they turn pro, that is something that they're like, okay, what am I going to do today outside of practice time? So yeah, just doing whatever makes you ready to perform at the highest level.
Right, I see. And then in terms of, you mentioned it there briefly, but your approach to nutrition, is that something you take fairly seriously?
Yeah, I'm not like super intense with it. I feel like I know what I should and shouldn't be eating, and I also know that there is a life to live, and you never know what's going to happen, and I'm going to have a treat if I want a treat. But yeah, main thing is obviously just surrounding competition time. It's just fueling your body the best to your ability, knowing what is going to make you be able to perform for 40 minutes, and then recovery is crucial.
And then in terms of recovery, something that we've just started to speak about a little bit more recently on the podcast, do you find that sleep and rest and giving yourself that time to not be stressing about your sport and actually taking a bit of time to just be relaxed. Do you find that helps in terms of just giving you that holistic approach to everything?
Yeah, 100%. I think sleep is so important, and like I said, when you are a pro, you might have the opportunity to stay up later than you probably should do, depending on your schedule. I personally have never struggled with sleep. I love to sleep. So yeah, just getting that in, whether it's, you know, short naps in the day of 20 minutes, giving you that energy boost that you need, and just bringing everything together, whether it's the stretching, the foam rolling, yoga, whatever it is, breath work that makes you feel good and grounded, working as one thing all together to help you feel prepared.
Can you tell us a bit about funding and how that works with female basketball, and then perhaps how Sports for Champions and agencies like it can help?
Yeah, so the funding for women's basketball, unfortunately, is not the greatest. Basketball as a whole in the UK is severely underfunded. We have a very, very high participation rate. It's a very easily accessible sport, especially in low-income areas. But unfortunately, we don't get that government backing that we probably should do. So it involves, you know, teams getting sponsorships, getting investors, which creates a lot of disparity amongst the league of how well teams are able to do that. You know, we have some teams at the top end that have enough money to be fully professional, and then you have other teams that might have 3 professionals, 3 students, 2 girls from the local area. So it does create a huge disparity. But I think it's getting better, and I think that women's sport as a whole is just on the rise. I mean, you see it with women's football. All the talk about like the women's NCAA tournament in America at the minute, you know, there's so much media coverage, which is amazing. So it's just keep pushing it, keep elevating the game, and knowing that you get out what you put in. And if you want a high level sport and you want teams that can compete at a high level, you have to put the money in so that they can afford to commit to the sport. If you can't fund and you can't have girls that are able to be paid, well, they need to get their money from somewhere. So it's giving them that opportunity to fully commit and be able to put into the sport so that they can perform.
Because that's who you're competing against on the world stage.
Exactly.
The countries are doing that, aren't they?
Yeah.
Kind of brings me on nicely to my next question. I read recently that the number 1 growing sport in the UK is women's football, and number 2 is basketball, just close behind it. Can you tell us a little bit about how you see the future of basketball in the UK, and particularly for women and girls?
Yeah, I'm hoping that the future is bright. Like you say, there's participation levels are so high, and so it's just about the grassroots being good, and then having staff in place to really allow that to travel through to the higher levels, you know, keeping girls in sport. I think that if you look at research, I think that around like 14 or something, it drops off, and girls go elsewhere, and they stop competing in sport. So it's building that foundation at the base level, and doing stuff like we're going to be doing, going into schools, getting kids active, seeing how amazing it is to be active through a game and not just going for a run necessarily, but there's a competition element, which for me is crucial. So yeah, building that, getting the right coaching staff, national teams, trying to make us compete on the stage, you know, with the top dogs. And then keeping teams together. I think that's crucial, as well as once you've got a talented group of girls, keep them together, stay in contact with them, keep them going through the ages. We start, you know, at a young age, keep them going all the way through so that we have a good GB senior women's team, and then we compete and win some medals, and then hopefully we get that more backing that we deserve.
Yeah, that's definitely the way to do it. And then in terms of, if you had a piece of advice for a young person maybe starting to think about a career in sport, or maybe basketball more specifically, what would it be?
I would say to just never lose the element of fun. I think that as you get older it can become more serious, so I think the reason why you start a sport is because it's fun and it brings you enjoyment, no matter what age you are, whether you're 5, whether you're 12 and you find it in high school. That's what's attractive about the game, and I think don't lose that part of it. Always make sure you're having fun, you're smiling, you're laughing, you're enjoying yourself, and that's when you're going to perform at your best, because you're enjoying it. So yeah, have fun and work hard, and it's a recipe for success.
Oh, that's a great note to end it on.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
I'm more than welcome, and thank you to everyone joining us from home. We'll see you next time. Cheers.
Bye.